Hashtag Poof Daddy. Let's use that when we're talking about John Kerry. Okay, I came up with that. Ben, that was my idea. I get the copyright on that. Poof Daddy. Also, second place was Poof the Magic Dragon. We'll stick with Poof Daddy. Caller, you are on with Reality Bites with Josh Haston. How you doing? Hello.
Hi, Josh. This is Edward from California.
Ed, my main man in L.A., West Coast correspondent. It's been a while. How you doing, my man?
Oh, I'm thanking God. I'm going to my synagogue, my big Knesset here locally, getting more involved with the community here. And I miss calling into the station. It's been quite a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. Where you been? What you doing?
I go to my local Valley Baptist with the local community synagogue, and I go and I just be part of the service on Friday, Saturday, Shabbat. Just to see more of my, belong to more of the community, the Jewish community, and I'm moving ahead with that. So, I don't know. I'm hoping to go home in the future one day to Israel, so
we hope to see you soon.
And the contacts.
We hope to see you very, very soon here in Israel. And as you know, I know you are a news follower, extremely committed, dedicated defender. And I don't like using that. I like saying going on the offense for the people of the state of Israel with everything you do. Tell us what's going on over there in terms of the media coverage of this whole John Kerry, or as I now call him, Poof Daddy, and everything he said in terms of putting the onus of responsibility or blame, if you will, on Israel for there not being peace here in the Middle East. He's blaming Israel. What do you think about that?
I think that's inappropriate, and it's not being honorable and just for the situation. I think people have to live there, try to put themselves in people's Israeli shoes, and living there. I do my best here in the exile, but people have to remember it's not fair if you look at, a balanced perspective that, there's one side that actually is trying its best, Israel, to make peace on godly terms. And then you have one other side that actually indoctrinates its children to blow themselves up and to kill Israel as an enemy. It's ridiculous. And I think people have to ask themselves, what does God really say about this? Because I always think, all leadership, forgive me, in general has failed Israel. I hope people can start to think, well, where's God in this peace banner in this world? I'm more about, getting a kingship with a high priest in Israel and building the temple again in these days. I don't know what people think, and I always have the hope of Eliyahu coming back. I know there's prophecies of end time, things like that, but people have to remember that there's God, and you have to strive for godliness in our lives, and that starts with us being good and kind to our neighbors and to the people on the street. I think sometimes there's leaders that don't understand that there's people that are dying, there's people that are being killed, and it's not fair for their families to keep suffering like that. And Israel has to be that light, and that also means being true to the Torah,
That's a good answer, Ed. Bringing God back into the mix. I said that's a great answer. Bringing God, Hashem, back into the mix here. That's very. And
you have to remember too, Josh. The covenant's eternal. It's just, I wish sometimes there'd be like a Nehemiah, or Eliyahu would come back and say, how is it? What does it really mean to be of Israel? I mean, do people expect to have sacrifices again in Jerusalem in the temple? I mean, God deserves His home. That's what I'm about. I hope in our days God would send Eliyahu if things don't get any better, which I don't foresee. That at least there'll be somebody godly from heaven, Shemayim, that'll come down to give proper instruction. I mean, there's how do you call it? There's accountability, right. And that includes everyone. And I don't know. I mean, God isn't a bad God. God is the greatest God. God of the forefathers. And when Israel starts to remember the prophets and the writings are true, and they start, to ask for somebody like Nehemiah or Eliyahu to come back, it's only fair for God to have His temple and people having proper service to Hashem. You know,
One
I
day,
wish
buddy.
that
Listen,
Benjamin
it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's just a question of time. When, where? I mean, not where, but when. Really, I mean, and how. Maybe
yeah,
that's
I
more
mean,
accurate.
I don't know what. I mean, I wish people would do tshuva. You know, that people would actually turn to God, unless things get worse, which God forbid, I don't want to see that happen. But I think people should be striving to, you know, to ask God, what do you really entail? You know, we have to have a temple in Jerusalem. There has to be a restoration of proper service at Hashem, and people being godly, loving your neighbor as yourself, feeding the poor on the street, treating the widow and the orphan like your own self. And, you know, I know Israel is light. They love, you know, compared to their neighbors, there's no comparison. I just wish that there was more godly leadership.
Listen,
I
I
hope calling for the temple. They would be calling for God to come back. Really, you know, the prophets restored. You know, I don't know.
I hope you listen to Rabbi
keep
Richman.
It simple, you know. I don't want to make it complicated.
You listen to Rabbi Chaim Richman's program. I think that would be the perfect listen for you in terms of the necessity.
I know it's like
of building the temple now. I hope you do. The Rabbi Chaim Richman Temple Talk.
Exactly. But then again, think about it. You know, the kingship and the high priesthood, it was also political. And so I don't, you know, I think sometimes Benjamin needs like some backup support with the international community.
You're talking about
if the Jewish people don't care about where they're going, then who will care about them where they're going? Only God.
You're the second person today. You're the second person today that said it all starts at home. We have to look inside before we look outside. You know, and I'm very big today on blaming Kerry, or Poof Daddy, as I now call him. But
you should have. You know, if I were you, Josh, I wouldn't pay much attention to them.
I'll tell you the problem.
To be holy in your life.
To
encourage people to do the godly service.
You're right. My problem is that when he opens his mouth, and when he and others open their mouth, they put pressure on our leaders to make bad decisions. That's why I pay attention to it. I agree with you, and I agree with the Yosef and Haifa that said it has to start from within.
You folks need another King David. He need the kingship restored. You need a prophet like Eliyahu that God will always be with them and protect them and do what's right. It has to come back to God, and that's the bottom line with me. And I think many people would agree with that. I mean, look at the biblical accounts. Look at the book of Ezekiel. The book of Daniel. I mean,
I hate to cut you off again.
These are very good questions.
I hate to cut you off for a third time today, but we're going right to commercial. I appreciate your call, as always. Keep up your holy work,
I love you, brother.
Thanks, man. I appreciate your holy work.
I love you so much.
Amen. Thanks very much. Keep up your holy work. Ed in L.A. doing good for the Jews, man. Check out his stuff online.